Also, too, like the weapons we use today are very, very friendly to the shooter, right? In terms of the optics we have. It does take good fundamentals. It takes good fundamentals, especially in kind of the tables we do. But at the end of the day, if you just trust the optic, trust your breathing, trust your posture, you're going to be fine. The trigger control we have as we move on to kind of the sniper rifles we have as well, it's just, you just got to trust that you are doing the right thing time and time again, good muscle memory, and you'll be fine. Where I see it come into play, though, and what I like to do with my Marines is to bring in heavy breathing and kind of movement with that. And then you start to see that all collapse, right? We were very good on the rifle range, very, very calm. But, to be honest with you, most things happen with high heart rate and sweat and confusion and hunger and thirst and dust. So bringing that realistic training to Marines so that later on, basically, they know what it's like and they can adapt to it is key.
These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Sixth Ranch Podcast. The Sixth Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Sig Sauer. SIG is a leading provider and manufacturer of firearms, electro-optics, ammunition, air guns, and suppressors. For over 250 years, Sig Sauer Inc. has evolved and thrived by blending American ingenuity, German engineering, and Swiss precision. Today, Sig Sauer is synonymous with industry-leading quality and innovation, which has made it the brand of choice amongst the U.S. military, the global defense community, law enforcement, competitive shooters, hunters, and responsible citizens. Sig Sauer is also a premier provider of elite firearms instruction and tactical training at the Sig Sauer Academy located in New Hampshire. For more information about Sig Sauer and its complete line of products, visit sigsauer.com. Are you a major these days?
Yeah.
Should I be like standing at detention or something?
No, it just means I stayed
in. Oh, I swore that if you, for everybody, as soon as y'all made field grade, that you were dead to me, and I haven't been very good at keeping up with that promise. All you guys are majors now. How long until you're a colonel?
So I think I probably have 2 more years right now until I'll be on the board. And it's funny because major is actually, I haven't really experienced it in the real Marine Corps in the fleet. I've only been out here and recruiting for it. I was back as the opposite at 3-6 for a heartbeat. But I don't know what it's quite like to go back and be the Iron Major, if you will, the staff officer. I think I'll get to do that after this, which is, it's an interesting rank. They say the worst ranks are the gold ones, second lieutenant in this one.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that out here because I'm the CO for this recruiting station, which is awesome. But I know I'm about to feel the pain when I return.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, man. It's good to see. Look at that mustache. Damn.
Yeah, way outside of regs. So I don't know the last time we saw each other. It might have been in Quantico.
I think it would have been it had to have been, and or because once you went down to Lejeune, I went out to 2-1 in Pendleton, and then we just never ever synced up again in terms of physicality.
Yeah.
Location. I mean, the last person I saw from our kind of era was I saw Ish. He came and saw me before Afghanistan.
Nice.
In Lejeune, he came to my house, and maybe, honestly, I think 2 days before I left. So it was an interesting time. I was about to leave for 9 months. Kind of sad with me and my wife, but he came and just kind of sparked it up and sat, had a few beers and remembered TBS time.
Yeah, that's awesome. He's done really well for himself. Seems like he's just continued bouncing around the Marine Corps and the world and finding interesting places to help out.
Yeah, look at you with everything out there, man. It's exactly what you said you're going to do. It's so spot on.
It really kind of is. Yeah, I got lucky. So tell me a little bit about what happened after infantry officer course. Like, where did you end up next?
Yeah, so we were at OCS together, right? Also TBS.
Yep.
Back in 2010, and then once I went to IOC infantry officer course, it was 7 of us got assigned out to 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines, and that was what I wanted. I asked for Pendleton. Honestly, I asked for it because I grew up in Ohio and never left the East Coast, never visited California except for as a baby, and I thought to myself, the West Coast Marines were the ones getting into the action for Afghan back in 2010, 11, 12. And I was like, this is probably my best bet to go do it. So I requested Pendleton. And I remember me, Travis Mossy, Pat Gallagher, Travis Cooper, some other fellows who you remember, all got assigned to 2-1. And they were in Garmser at the time. So our communication with them was kind of iffy and spotty. But we got there, I think we got there in May of 2011. And we were told we're going back to Afghan, like, I don't know, maybe 9 months later. But what ended up happening was they gave that Afghan deployment to 1-5, I believe. And I think Eddie Bonnie jumped on that. Good old Eddie.
Nice.
Yeah, that one. So they gave us the 31st MU. So yeah, I went to 2-1 and began my journey as a lieutenant infantry officer, which I did not leave the infantry again for 10 straight years.
And that's not normal.
No, it's, I would say, just kind of got lucky with the way I was careened around the career path, if you will. I remember vividly at TBS when, you got armor, so did Ish, some other fellows got what they wanted. And I knew that the only thing I could do was infantry. Like I remember vividly Captain Bauer, who's the SPC, looked at it and he's like, you will get fired in every other job you do except for infantry. So this is your job. And which makes sense because, it's pure leadership. You get paid to shoot guns and work out is what I tell people we recruit now. But at the end of the day, it's just complete people business. And so that's kind of why I picked it in the first place. I also didn't know there was anything but infantry in the Marine Corps. I was like, what else is there
Sure.
you could possibly do, And I saw also, I remember, saying, oh, tanks would be awesome. But there's 2 spots. And of course, guys like you are going to get it. The top guys in the class are going to get it. And, if you could go back and say, would I want any other MOS besides infantry? Yeah, at the time it would be tanks. And that's it. Because I feel like they're so intertwined. Of course, there were the history of them that makes sense.
Well, tanks are just metal flavored infantry. You carry a gun, my gun carries me. It's a lot the same. What makes the Marine Corps, or what made the Marine Corps special with armor, is that everything that tanks do in the Marine Corps is with infantry, tank infantry integration. There's a phone on the back of the tank. You can run up and grab it like a payphone. You can talk to the tank commander. The Army never has figured that out. Tanks, armor, they've got divisions of armor and they go and do their own thing, and they haven't really figured out how to help each other and work together. And I think that's what made it so special in the Marine Corps. I saw that the Army now they're not calling it a tank, but it sort of looks and acts like a tank. They've got a little bit lighter vehicle. Is there any talk about the Marine Corps getting some armor back?
No, there's not. With the tanks divesting and going away, I haven't felt the repercussions of it because the last ITX I did, the last exercise out in 29 Palms, had tanks at it. And since I left the fleet and came back out here to recruiting for the last 2.5 years, they've since gone away.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what their next step is in terms of bringing it back. I will say it's interesting if you look at the Russia-Ukraine conflict and you're staring at it and you're seeing the importance of tank infantry integration and how they have to tie together. It's been we are going to have so many damn case studies, so much to learn from everything that's occurring once we get it all kind of figured out and put it onto a piece of paper and do a TDG with the tactical decision game. It's going to be fuel for fire for us to learn for the next 20, 30, 40 years. What a better way to learn a playbook than to watch it unfold on social media and, drone footage, et cetera. That I almost wonder if we're kind of waiting saying, hey, based on what we're seeing there, what would be the next step? Because as you know, the Marine Corps has to be smarter. We have to be smarter than every other force because we're fighting to survive every day. The whole saying about America doesn't, want a Marine Corps, it needs a Marine Corps kind of thing. Or whatever the hell that saying is, but it's true. They're seeing it right.
Yeah, whichever way you spin that is true. But it's never both. America never both wants and needs a Marine Corps. It's only one or the other. Yeah, very true. So how long was it before you actually got a line platoon and went out and started doing the thing?
Yeah, so I mean, when I got there, it was interesting because I went straight into Echo Weapons Platoon, Echo 2-1, and Echo was and is still considered one of the most storied companies in the Marine Corps because it's Warhammer. It's just the lineage is crazy. So that was an honor to be there. I went straight into weapons. I don't know why they thought I had some kind of brain for math. I don't know if maybe they thought that I would fit in with machine gunners and assaultmen and mortarmen. But I've never left that kind of stigma since. Went Echo Weapons, and they sent me to Infantry Mortar Leaders course right away. And it just so happened that 81's platoon opened up at 2-1, and they moved me over to 81's, and I stayed there for about 2+ years at 2-1, which is usually the senior billet for like a platoon commander for infantry. It was fantastic because I had the trap platoon, the tactical recovery aircraft and personnel platoon, which is basically made up of my 81's Bolas. And, then I had my 60+ at any times Marines from 81's. And these guys were damn war heroes. I mean, 2-1, when I got them, they were converted into a line platoon back in Garmser, and they just did great work. I mean, I had guys like, Sergeant Farias at the time, who had found somewhere close to 80 or 90 IEDs by himself. Just these guys that I was inheriting and kind of formed at the time. I still consider my leadership style from that first platoon, where I just basically shut the fuck up and listened the entire time. I knew that I did not know and had the same experience as them, but I also had enough experience as a captain in sports, etc., that I was just going to lead by example and listen. So my first platoon I got for 2+ years at 2-1, and what we didn't do anything crazy, right? We did once that deployment was given up. We got assigned to 31st MU. Our battalion commander changed. Our battalion commander was Lieutenant Colonel Reed, now General Reed, and he moved on, and we got Lieutenant Colonel Pretty in. We went on 31st MU. Nothing wild. I think the only thing that we did worth noting, and my first real taste at leading guys into a scenario where there could have been trouble, was the trap platoon was mobilized to go into Cambodia. We went into Phnom Penh and did about 32 days on the ground in Phnom Penh, waiting for President Obama to come in there for a 4-day Asian summit. So we did, route reconnaissance. We had the Hueys there with all this, Secret Service flying over the city, looking at, escape plans, etc. And I finally felt like I had done something worthwhile in the Marine Corps at the end of my first deployment, right? And the whole time I'm watching you go to Afghan. I'm watching everyone else get that first deployment in. I'm like watching Matthias going to Afghan. I'm like, and I'm saying to myself, like, hey, it'll come. Like the whole saying, don't chase the dragon. I was absolutely in the mindset I was going to chase that damn dragon wherever I could find it. And now, 12 years later, whatever it is, the dragon will find you one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the things that civilians almost universally get wrong about Marines is they think, okay, it's a time of war. You're probably, training and preparing, but hoping that you don't get called up. Like you aren't the one going out on a deployment. And Marines are constantly like ready to fist fight anybody if that gets them the chance to go. Like everybody wants to go. You want it so freaking bad because you've worked incredibly hard, like harder than most humans know that another human can work to make yourself ready so that you can support the rest of the guys in your platoon or your unit or whatever. You want to go do that job.
Absolutely. No, you want to. Remember, I volunteered. That it's funny because when I came back from that MU, we're sitting there in 2-1, and we know we kind of have a year plus left. And I'm looking across, like everyone did, right? We're the IAs. We're the individual augmentee deployments, right? How can I get to Afghanistan? And the whole time you're just like, hey, what about this Georgia liaison team? What about this deployment? And so I put my name in the hat. I said, whatever pops up. And mind you, this is before I met my wife, right? I'm like saying, whatever pops up, send me. I will go. I don't care if it's, 18 months in Afghan. I don't care. And I remember the Georgia liaison teams were offered up there. And I just so happened at that time to meet my current wife. I met her, and it didn't change anything because I already was on that path, but I got assigned to a deployment to Yemen. I got an opportunity to go to Sana'a with, at the time it was 1-1. I cross-decked to 1-1, 1st Battalion, 1st Marines. I got this makeshift platoon of a bunch of machine gunners and assault men, and this is post-Benghazi, so they're saying, hey, you guys we have to do this from now on. We have to beef up this security in these war-torn countries. And I'll tell you, before I even went there, never could tell you where Yemen was. Never even heard of it. Never knew what it meant to Al-Qaeda at the time, AQAP, how it was there's a book called The Last Refuge. And it notes exactly why Yemen is so important to Al-Qaeda and everyone that is basically an extremist. So I read all that stuff, got ready to go, chase the dragon again, and we go over there, and we're basically, I'm in charge of the guys that are standing post and guarding a bunch of State Department employees. And, there's some cool missions going on, but I kept chasing it again. And that's kind of the moral that my whole time, I chased it, which kept me in the infantry, but also made me kind of the first 10 years of my career just fly by, completely fly by. I left there. While I was over there, I had gone to First Recon beforehand, and I talked to their executive officer at the time. I think it was Major Brian. And I said, hey, I want to go to BRC and I want to come to First Recon. It was kind of a dream of mine, was to go just push yourself beyond the limits and be a reconnaissance officer. And he said, hey, we got a spot for you. You just got to do the screener and then, go to BRC. But when this deployment popped up, I kind of screwed that timeline. And, I chased that at the same time I just met my wife. And so, I'm over there. While I'm over there, I get orders to make TOG, which is out in 29 Palms, right? And it's not the job I want. It's not recon. I can't go to the screen. I can't go to screener. I can't go to BRC anymore. And I basically, at the time, was like, I'm getting out. I'm going to get out. Like, I chased it twice. I'm over here in Yemen. I have enough to go forward with my life. I found my wife, and it, I kind of weighed all the options. And at the time, someone went to bat for me and kept me in the infantry. They moved me over to School of Infantry West, where I, for 3 years, had what I think is the single best infantry officer job as a captain in the Marine Corps. I got a chance to be the officer in charge, and in charge is a very, very, very loose term for what I was doing over there. I had the best infantrymen from all of Iraq and Afghanistan in charge of advanced infantryman course, mortars, missiles, machine guns, and assault. And then for 2 years, I got to run infantry small unit leaders course, infantry unit leaders course, and then I got a little taste of running scout sniper course for a couple of cycles. So that was if I could say whenever I got hooked up, it was that was like the hookup to stay in the infantry, to be that much more pertinent in my job after chasing the dragon for about 4 years.
Is Combat Hunter still a thing?
So Combat Hunter was dissolved from us. They moved it away from us. Absolutely a amazing course that opened the eyes of many of our junior Marines and many of our kind of like pre-squad leaders. I'm not quite sure if they kept it around or brought it back, but I know we had got rid of it as I was leaving in 2017.
Gotcha. I thought that course had so much potential, and it probably needed some more levels to it, because it was a little bit JV. It was really helpful. But for the folks that don't know, Combat Hunter was a course that basically took professionals from the hunting world and then professionals from the military world, combined them and said, all right, what skills overlap and how can we do this a little bit better? And there was some stuff that we did at probably TBS, it must have been, where it was how to use a pair of binoculars. And I was pretty arrogant about it. I've used binoculars my entire life a lot. Like I have them on me all the time. And I learned stuff in this 10-minute course that I'd never even heard of. Like, it was groundbreaking usage of how to use binoculars, because we'd gotten these two groups together that both were putting a lot in the line for it. And this is just a stupid example, but it was really helpful. And when I got to Afghanistan, every single tank commander in that company had a pair of binoculars with them all the time. And that's something that we used a lot, and it helped us a lot. So that was a cool course. I hope it's been replaced by something else that's, doing an even better job.
Yeah, I mean, just a little nuanced story about it is the way you read is the way you forget things too, right? So if you remember You grab a pair of binos, and I'm sure this is applicable for anyone. As soon as you grab those binos, you start scanning from left to right because you read left to right, right? That's just the way we're conditioned to do it. The idea is to do the opposite. Go right to left. You'll burn through some more veg, and you'll see things you didn't see. But the natural tendency, no matter what, is to always scan things from left to right because we are built that way from infancy, if you will.
Yeah, no, it's very true. And when we read words, we don't look at every letter in the word. We look at how many letters there are and roughly which letters they are. And then we make an assumption in our brain really quickly about what that word is and move on. And we do the same thing when we're scanning with binoculars. If you go from left to right, top to bottom, as you're gridding, you're just taking the smallest possible amount of time and the smallest amount of information and then making assumptions about that and then moving on. Whereas if you start at the bottom and go right to left, bottom to top, then you'll notice a lot more stuff, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I remember we brought in law enforcement officers as well, talking about profiling for camo hunter, just baseline and anomalies that pop up. I mean, Kim's games are fantastic for kind of, conditioning the mind to, place a bunch of items on a blanket, go do something stressful for a period of time, come back to it and try to remember exactly what was where on a blank slate. It just something to train the mind to always be better and be a little bit more lethal. But that was Combat Hunter's kind of way it helped. Yeah, I know we incorporated in all of our courses. It was just basically like a 1 or 2 day type, but the no shit 2+ week. I think it was 2 weeks for Combat Hunter. Not sure if they brought that back or not. But yeah, the cool things I got there though. I mean, they did send me to the SEER. I got to go down to Coronado and go to their survival course, which to me honestly was just a very, very interesting way to find out how much your body can take in terms of lack of nutrients and the massive amount of weight you shed in a period of time, and also how to deal with hunger pains. A lot of the other discipline things that came with it didn't really apply, having gone through IOC a few years before that. So I got to go through SEER, and then I also got to go through at the time TACP. So I was basically became a JTAC there, which is a ground version of a FAC, which is not normal for an infantry officer. I was afforded an opportunity because running IULC, which is the 0369 Infantry Unit Leader course, the certified to give you that MOS, they needed someone to run close air support to teach the class, and then to go out there with the actual no shit skids covering the Huey and to be the safety officer for it. So I had been through weapons and tactics instructor course out in Yuma, Arizona. I had been 81s, and one of the best officers I've ever served with kind of looked at me and said, "Can you pass the course?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I can pass the course." And I remember applying to go out there, and they kicked me out a few times. They're like, "There's no reason for an infantry officer to come through this." They basically said, "Hey, take your name off the roster. You'll never use it. No reason to come," kind of thing. And the West Coast didn't allow me to come. Finally, the East Coast in Little Creek, Virginia, said, "Come on out. Come on out." So I remember flying in there, going the first day, and the chief instructor, who was a Cobra major, he looked at me. He's like, "Why are you here?" I was like, to explain, "Hey, I run a course. I'm the OIC. They need someone to teach close air support. As an infantry officer, we used to send infantrymen through this course, and now it's become more of like an artillery, aviators, and then reconnaissance and special forces. But this is something where I think it could be beneficial in the rest of my career." He's like, "Okay, but you'll never use it." Right. So I kind of took that personally, and I was the honor grad from that course, and then ended up using it not a ton. I mean, in Afghanistan, I was a joint terminal attack controller in 2017. And then, as a weapons company commander and a fire support coordinator later on at 3.6, I've used it ever since. And it's kind of been a way I've separated myself, I think, from my peers up to this point, was having that knowledge how to, drop a bomb off a plane, if you will.
And right now you're in recruiting.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So every single year they come together and select about anywhere from 10 to 20 majors. There's 48 recruiting stations across America, and they are ran by majors as commanding officer. It's the only or one of the few commanding officer bills you can get as a major. And each year they select what they consider the top 3%. I was lucky enough as a captain, about to pick up major, got selected back in 2019 to come to Cleveland. So I've been here since February 20, right before COVID hit. Wow. And I am fortunate enough to be in charge of 11 different substations and then 2 officer selection teams. And we are in charge of Northern Ohio, Southern Michigan. And our job is to basically find and enlist and ship off to recruit training on enlisted and officers from this area. We're given a monthly mission, a yearly mission, and we got to find them, train them in the delayed entry program, and ship them off to boot camp and make sure they become Marines. It is harder than anything I've ever done in the Marine Corps, hands down. Yeah, because Marines aren't salesmen, right? We join. A lot of people join the Marines because they don't want to talk to people. Like they just get away from me. Like I'm going to go prove myself, be the silent professional. I don't need this. And then you put them back in front of high school students to say, hey, you're not finding the kids that want to be Marines. You're finding the kids that don't want to be Marines, and you're showing them how it can enhance their path. And they're like, say what? I'm doing what? I'm like, yes, it's going to challenge you. But it's also considered the reason why most Marines get promoted the rest of their career if they are successful in this billet.
Well, that's cool. What has recruiting been like in this day and age, and maybe compare that to, 12 years ago when we were coming up?
Completely different for a myriad of factors. I'll kind of start with the generation we have right now. Is I think you and I maybe got a cell phone in our hand, maybe junior high or high school? Like that's when we first picked up a cell phone, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, like smartphones were barely becoming a thing. Like, I think Ish had the first iPhone I ever saw.
Yeah, it's
people were rocking Blackberries. I had a Blackberry back then.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what we were, right? So it's outside type kids, and now every kid you know for a fact because they're born in 2004 or before, and you know that they've grown up with it. You know that they're consistently facing the phone. A lot of they text. That's how they communicate, and it's just that is their form of kind of approval is via a device. Not to say that they're any worse than we were, but also too, our generation, high school and college, watched Iraq happen. Defining to see 9/11 as a sophomore in high school, where a lot of these young men and women now were born 3 years after that. So it's just a completely different, and I would say it's a different upbringing of what they've seen. They can't fault them for it because the ones that do join, I actually put more value in that because there isn't something extremely patriotic bringing them in. I think it's just a sense of service beyond themselves. They want to do something bigger than they are currently, and they see the Marine Corps as that path. I mean, a lot of the young men and women we get, it's the intangibles. It's earning the title and having that title the rest of their life. So I applaud them. Every time they come in, I say, hey, I think it was easier for me to join because I saw a war. I saw what was happening, and I knew that was kind of, a calling, if you will. Now, it's not the cool thing to do. It is not. It's actually cool to be kind of dissenting towards the military, and especially in my area. And these kids are stepping up and saying, no, screw that. I want to go off and do something bigger than me. So that is one big thing. Another big thing is I think our generation was not as, I don't know how to put this the right way, but we weren't as medicated. We weren't as kind of, you break your arm, like put a cast on and you'll be back in a few months. Depression, anxiety, kind of things like that now pop in. I mean, these young men and women are dealing with COVID. They for 2 years were displaced from their social circles, displaced from their high schools, and basically sat at home and learned via Zoom. And that has had a very, very big impact on the way, once again, they communicate and the way they see the world. I do think propensity to enlist is higher right now because coming out of COVID, all these kids just want to get out. Hey, let me go see the world. Since my freshman year of high school, I've been trapped in my house learning calculus via Zoom. I want to go see Japan. And hey, I'm your Huckleberry. I got you, man.
Yeah.
I can sit in Japan. So if that answers the question, they're different. They're different, but they're better in some instances. They're worse in some instances. But I tell you, I applaud every single one of these damn kids that say, I will go against the norm even more than we did and join.
What's the right way to get recruited? Because there's definitely some wrong ways. So what advice do you have to somebody, whether they're going to the Marine Corps or a lesser service branch? What advice do you have to go through the process and make sure that they're protected, that they're getting good information, all that?
I would say, when you go through or think about doing it, is just remember that you're following a long line of people that have done it before you, right? That's the best advice to tell them, is that it's been done before. And it's going to feel foreign at first, right? You walk in there, you talk to a Marine recruiter, you take the enlistment screening test, you get screened out, physically, mentally, emotionally, where you at. And it's a huge life decision, and it should be. It should be. But I think my advice is to enjoy the ride, right? Enjoy the process of you being the same office or type of office that, John Basilone and, James Nash and other people have been in before, and just basically listen to what the recruiter has to say. I would tell them to realize that recruiters themselves have backgrounds, right? So I just came from an office right now in Madison Heights in Detroit, and I have communicators in there. I have an engineer in there. I have different MOSs. So when they talk to you about the Marine Corps, they're going to have knowledge about their job, but they might not have knowledge about all the jobs, right? We try to give them as much product knowledge as possible. So they will, though, have people within the recruiting station across, Cleveland right now. We have people that have all the jobs, basically. So if you want to know about the infantry and there's no infantry Marines in that office, they will call someone for you and explain kind of like what you're getting into. That's probably where I'd start. The second one is that you don't have to be in tip-top shape to start the process, right?
Yeah, very true.
Yep. It is our job. We have what's called the delayed entry program to take you from when you come in to make sure you're physically and mentally qualified and get you ready emotionally and physically for boot camp. So, I ask people in the office sometimes, I say, if I could snap my fingers right now and you could skip boot camp, would you? And they go, oh God, yeah. Oh, oh, hell yeah. I would skip it in a heartbeat. I said, no. That's the point of it. It's beautiful. All right. When you go down there, you're a civilian. And I love civilians. I love it. I love the long hair. I love the posture. I love the attitude. I love the hands in the pockets. I love all of it, right? But at the end of the day, Marine Corps boot camp, Marine Corps recruit training is going to transform you. And after 13 weeks, if you think you're done after 6 weeks, you're like, hey, I want time to go faster. Why is this taking so long? What is going on? Well, just hold on a second, because the transformation is not done yet, right? If we stopped you at 6 weeks, you would be called Army, right? Because you aren't ready to be a Marine yet. So that's a joke, but the transformation takes 13 weeks. Just trust it, let it happen. At the end of it, you're going to sit there and cry with your parents on the parade deck down in Paris Island or San Diego, and it'll all be worth it. So that's kind of my 2 cents is, go in there, trust the process, understand there are things you have to be honest about your past, but we do not try to find a way for you to not join. We're trying to find a way for you to join. We want everyone. I am absolutely, anyone that wants to join, I'll find a way for you, man. I will find a way, whether that's mentally, that you can't pass the test, you need help. Okay. There's ways to do that in terms of getting you out in town with tutors and stuff like that. Physically, we got you. We'll make sure you can run the mile and a half to go down to recruit training. Emotionally, your girlfriend's, hey, don't leave me. We got you. Like we will make sure she's part of the journey. But when you join the Marine Corps, you're joining a brotherhood. It's a huge fucking family. I mean, we have 180,000 plus. We're the smallest by far. It's the best decision. I mean, I love the other branches. I've served with them overseas, Afghanistan, Yemen, you name it. But there's something about earning that title that they'll never forget. So not a sales pitch. I've just been doing this for 2+ years.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about Yemen, because I didn't even know you were there. And then I saw you on television talking about it. Like there was some gal from CNN or whatever that was like in your ops tent and you're explaining what was happening. We kind of glossed over Yemen. And for those who don't even know where it is or what it is, or that it was a safe haven for Islamic extremists, what was going on there? Tell me a little more.
Yeah. So that deployment was strange because Benghazi happened and CENTCOM and Marcent 4, which is in Bahrain, decided to flex some muscle to the State Department that have missions across the world, right? Yemen is absolutely a hotspot because you have the Houthi rebels, as well as you have the YSF, the Yemeni Security Forces, and it's basically an Iran versus Saudi Arabia proxy war, if you will. So we are smack dab in the middle of that in Sana'a, which is basically it's right in the middle of the country. It's a mile up in the air, and there's no natural bodies of water. It's just completely dirt poor. They have an obsession with pot, QAT.
Yeah.
Put it in their mouth, and they're just high as hell all day long. And we're there because we're protecting that mission, right? We made sure that we were somehow having State Department workers still embedded with the government, brokering peace talks, making sure nothing was going crazy. So it was a strange thing for us to be in uniform up on posts, 50 cals, Mark 19s, you name it. And then all of a sudden get into civvies and go on, runs to the airport type thing. And I still remember vividly flying into the airport, getting into these Tahoes and driving down to the embassy, because we're at the embassy in another facility. And we came to a checkpoint, and big old dish goes out there, and they're like, "Hey, just these guys are in charge. No need to ask who they are. Just trust me, they're on our side." I'm like, "Wow, this is a lot of trust out here. These guys have what are we doing?" And for me, I'm a lieutenant turning captain out there, just kind of making sure at the time that my guys are on point. Like, they have it, they're ready to go. If something ever happens, they got it, because the company before us did have to take down a few people when they came over the gate one time. And so I told my guys, who were all Afghan vets anyway, they were with 1-1 that just came back, that just be ready. It's going to be boring. It's going to be mundane. But you don't want to be the one that gets caught napping out here. The whole time also too, I'm trying to do active security measures and kind of throw off Al-Qaeda, who's watching us. We know they're watching us, right? You get on the rooftop and you look at them, they look at you. And so I remember I got in trouble. This is a good story for you. I got in trouble for two things out there. One is that we had trees in our line of sight for one of our guns. So, like, we had a 50 cal on the roof, and I had some trees in between basically our sector of fire. And so I walked up to, you remember, like, we work for civilians. Marines work for civilians. We all do. Like, they're the overlords. And I was like, "Hey, that tree has got to go. It's in my, if I need to traverse left with the 50 cal, it's right there. And I got some dead space I need to cover with that as well." And this lady looks at me and goes, "No, there are birds in there." I'm like, there's what in there? She's like, there are birds in there, and there's a nest, and it can't come down. And I was like, "Wait, hold on a second. So you're willing to sacrifice about 5 degrees of coverage of this wall so that the birds can have a safe place to sit?" And that was kind of my first, like, holy shit moment. And of course I got in trouble, because I walked back, I look at, I think it was Sergeant Lynch, and Staff Sergeant Davidson, who's my platoon sergeant. I'm like, "Hey, that tree's got to go." And they're like, "Sir, it'll be taken care of." I'm like, right? And that night, unbeknownst to me, because I was not awake at 3 a.m. They found some chainsaws and they took it down out there. So that was the first time they came barged in. Like, "What the hell did you do?" The second one was because I had some dead space and I had to cover it, and I had claymores, but it's against all sorts of rules and regulations to put out claymores where people might happen to be that aren't combatants. But I wanted to put the fear of God in these people, so I decided to take the claymores, and we got some wood, and we traced the claymore on the wood, and we made about 6 of them, and we got wire, and we rolled it up to it. And the next day in broad daylight, which, I don't know why they thought we'd put them in broad daylight. We went out to the dead space. We crawled out there. We put the fake claymores in, and they were pointing towards this busy ass street. But my dead space was covered, right? Psychologically, they had no idea real or fake. Maybe 2 days later, I get barging in, like, "You cannot do that. The locals are freaked out. I can't believe you would do such a thing." But at the time, like, I'm thinking to myself, like, I will do anything to make sure that they don't take a shot at us. And this, I think, has to be the way we do it. Just keep them on their toes. Funny enough, 2 cycles later, they did evacuate Yemen, and they got out of there and took everyone out, destroyed all the weapons, and that was that. I don't think we've been back since, really.
And that's what people don't understand, is sometimes having an extremely aggressive posture, not doing anything, but just showing that you are so freaking ready and capable of doing something aggressive, is enough to save the lives of everybody. Like, your side, their side. It's like, no, we don't want to lose. This is a losing situation. I can tell from here. So let's just not. How about, like, these guys are making wooden claymores. Like, let's leave them alone, And in southern Afghanistan with the Pashtun people, they literally pass along vendetta like it's an heirloom. Like that goes from one generation to the next. Like, hey, you are inheriting this anger towards this group of people that did something to our group of people 3 generations ago. We think, I don't know, it's a bit of a telephone game. So you have to understand how big the implications can get from, having a soft posture, and then somebody decides, okay, it's soft enough that I'm going to get aggressive and take a shot. Now they shoot back, they kill me and, 3 other people. Now we have a growing problem. So I like, I like looking aggressive and being ready to take that step. I think that that's a good, solid tactic. So I commend you for it. And the Marines going out and cutting that tree down, that is such a Marine Corps thing. Like, nobody could possibly be surprised that happened. And, as the officer, you've just got to take it and be like, yep, that's on me. I didn't use all of my words correctly. So if you're mad about the tree, you're mad at me.
Yeah. I think my response at the time, and this is to the regional support officer, or I forget what the security officer, so I was like, hey, well, I mean, we can't put it back up. So it kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
If you will. It's funny you bring up the posture thing. So I had, like I said, I was lucky enough to run the sniper course for a couple cycles. And then I happened to have snipers in my company at 3-6 Weapons Company later on, 2018 to 2020 timeframe. And I used to tell them, I go, hey, like, I understand you guys want to look different. I get it. Like, it's a rite of passage. You went through a screener, you went through sniper course, you got the Hawks, you get everything. Like, good for you. But in my opinion, if I were you, that's even more reason to look exactly the same as the infantryman, right? I used to say, hey, to be seen is to be compromised, to be compromised, to be killed. So I want you to look the same exactly as your brother. When you go on patrol, when you leave the wire, I don't want them to be able to pick you out just because, they can pick you out based on the weapon you carry, but not because you're wearing a high cut, you got longer hair, you got your sleeves rolled, your boot blasters are untucked. And it took a while to insert into 3-6 weapons into that state platoon, but they started to get it, right? I want them to be the silent professionals. No one knows where they're at. They shouldn't know who the snipers are. They should just know that they're bad motherfuckers. When they come around, they mean business. And it started to catch hold with them, at least. And I learned that from, I had Staff Sergeant Sotelo. I think it was Gunny later on, Gunny Sotelo, but he was the course instructor for sniper course. And then I had Sergeant Vallejo, who I know is a marksmanship instructor out West Coast. But I remember Sotelo, you couldn't tell from a mile away at the School of Infantry that he was just a very, very, very well put together Marine, right? But he did not have all the extra things that you would think he had being a sniper. He just was a battle-hardened, bad man. But the way he presented himself, the way he talked, the way he kind of saw the MOS was kind of enlightening for me because, I mean, I'm a novice. I'm a novice. I never shot a weapon before I even joined the Marine Corps, which is kind of sacrilegious to say, right? But it just is what it is. It's, so I looked at those guys and said, that's who I'm going to follow, and that's who I'm going to use the lead for when I get my sniper platoon in Weapons Company. And it kind of rolled downhill. I said, guys, like, no one needs to know who you are. They just need to fear what you can do. And kind of caught hold at Weapons Company.
It takes a lot of confidence, personal confidence and humility to do that, because I think where that's really coming from, going the other way, keeping your hair longer or whatever, it's almost like you're trying to prove something to the people around you. And it's not necessary. So that shows really good leadership on your part, that you were able to build up their confidence in a way that they were willing to be that gray man and just fit into the unit and not be a target, both for themselves and for the capabilities of the unit. Like if you've got a sniper attached, you want to keep him attached. You don't want that guy getting shot. You don't want to lose that capability. So, but man, I remember you shooting good. You shot really well. I don't think that it's a disadvantage to come into the Marine Corps not having shot a rifle very much. It may actually, the opposite might be true. I had a hard time learning to shoot the M4, for example, in the way that the Marine Corps taught me, because it was so different from all the shooting that I'd done my entire life.
Yeah, no, I remember, I kind of joked the other day with Biney. I still keep in touch with him. He's getting married this fall. And, we're talking about at TBS, I was shooting fine. Never shot a weapon before in my life. Get to qual day, and I couldn't hit the target to save my life for I think 4 or 5 times. They run me through the entire thing. It wasn't until I went through back to them and like, hey, this weapon is absolutely malfunctioning. They put an instructor on it. They realized it was. So I kind of made that as a point of pride. I haven't, since then I've made sure that shot expert every single year on both that plus the pistol. And I love it. I mean, also too, like the weapons we use today are, very, very friendly to the shooter, right? In terms of the optics we have. It does take good fundamentals. It takes good fundamentals, especially in kind of the tables we do. But at the end of the day, if you just trust the optic, trust your breathing, trust your posture, you're going to be fine. The trigger control we have as we move on to kind of the sniper rifles we have as well, it's just, you just got to trust that you are doing the right thing time and time again, good muscle memory, and you'll be fine. Where I see it come into play, though, and what I like to do with my Marines is to bring in heavy breathing and kind of, movement with that. And then you start to see that all collapse, right? We were very good on the rifle range, very, very calm. But, to be honest with you, most things happen with high heart rate and sweat and confusion and hunger and thirst and dust. So bringing that realistic training to Marines so that later on, basically, they know what it's like and they can adapt to it is key. Because I swear it's funny. I had that same Lieutenant Colonel Reed, who was my battalion commander 2-1, was with me in Afghanistan as a colonel. And we used to joke because he'd be like, hey, you know how every time that we drop a bomb and the Afghans exploit it and they go towards the objective, they're running, right? And I'm like, yeah, why? He goes, they're not flipping tires towards it, are they? I'm like, I was like, sir, I don't get it. He's like, well, they're not doing CrossFit as they run, right? They're running. Everything we do, yes, I understand there's some compound movements with CrossFit, everything else. But we just have to make sure we understand our heart rate, understand our body's behavior, and then it kind of make sure it's not the first time we ever feel it is the time it matters. Right. So a lot of stress shoots, with all the shooting positions you have, just making sure that you know what your body can do.
Yeah, no, it's true. If you add the elements of physical stress or time, then people will usually start doing worse until they've trained under those circumstances. And then you'll start to see cases where that stress actually gives them some improvement, and that there'll be people that argue with that. However, there's study after study that shows that Marines especially perform at a higher level when they're stressed than when they're relaxed.
Yep.
And it's just how we function.
Yeah. I didn't really know my heartbeat. So, I mean, I never really, if you will, proverbially or caught the dragon, right? School of Infantry, I was a certified JTAC. I got an opportunity to go to Afghanistan finally, 2017. Probably the most defining moment of my entire career so far was getting a chance to go over there for what I thought was going to be a year, ended up being 9 months. I started off with the training team, which is some of the best infantrymen I've ever seen in my life. And our job was to basically train Afghan National Army trainers to then bring in Kandaks. We train them, send them back out. So like we get guys from Sangin, they come in, we train them, they send them back out to Sangin. Just to look on these guys' faces. So I did that for a while. They kind of realized, because I was, in the evening time from going into the strike cell and putting on a headset and talking to F-16s and, everyone else that was out there, Apaches, and, doing some strikes, they realized that was kind of my niche, was to find, fix, and finish all the bad dudes across Afghanistan. And that's what you saw the kind of articles from. So Nat Geo, Vice, all those, embeds came out. And it was strange because I remember going back and reading a lot of the after actions from Afghan from like 2009 on to 14 when everyone left, and looking at the tactics they used and trying to outthink them. Like if I was, had some kind of aerial surveillance and I had manned drones and unmanned drones, like how would I do this? And I get over there and it's like the Taliban had forgotten in 3 years what our air power could do to them. I mean, we're the first ones. We're the first ones back. They are patrolling an open column with weapons slung across their backs. They are just bold in their action. And for months and months and months, we picked them apart and made them really, really, really nervous about going outside and doing anything at all. And the point was to expand the security bubble around Lashkar Gah. And we did, I thought, a fantastic job as the first people back there in 3 years to kind of give some kind of, confidence to the Afghans at the time who desperately needed it. Air power changes things tremendously. It just changes the world. And at the same time, we're trying to get the Afghan the Afghan Air Force up and going. And but that was the most defining moment of my time so far, those 9 months, calling in airstrikes and helping defend kind of the defenseless, if you will, and making the Taliban kind of fall back on their heels and be scared of any kind of hostile act they might do.
Yeah, which is the right feeling for the Taliban to have, is constant fear. That's what I want them to be feeling. Okay, gonna ask you a question here.
Yep.
If you were to tell one story bragging about a Marine, what story would you tell?
So I got one that sticks out significantly over, I wouldn't say, I'll start with one. So Staff Sergeant, then Gunny Davidson, was my platoon sergeant in Yemen. And this guy came with a lot of experience, a lot of, they call him Red, right? He's got red hair. He's from Texas. He's just maybe 5'6", skinny as can be, former drill instructor, but just an infantryman to his core. And, he always used to tell me, and I'm telling a story about another story he used to tell me, but this is kind of his demeanor. And in Yemen, he would patrol the post at night without anyone knowing and sneak up on people, right? Just to make sure they're doing the right thing. He was just that kind of guy. Never had his set hours. He was just always on. It didn't matter. He's since medically retired from the Marine Corps. He was an IOLC instructor later on. Came to my wedding and everything. But, he would tell me about Ramadi when he did the same thing, but in much different scenarios, when he would go outside the wire or around the wire and sneak up on post right in front of the guys and kind of pop out just to make sure they were aware and, staying on their game. And that's the kind of guy he was. It takes a lot for someone to walk up behind you, do a visit on your, sector of fire, or come out to your PB, or come to your, your exercise, or come to your station and say, hey, show me the good things, right? Show me what you've prepared for me before you come. He was the kind of leader that they knew he meant well by surprising them, and he wouldn't scold them, but he would say, like, hey, what would have happened if this was happening? Talk me through scenarios. How would you react? I'd say that's the best way to describe him. Is he kind of made me realize that it's servant leadership to its core. You exist to make sure that they accomplish the mission, they survive and go back to their families. Everything else is gravy. And that's probably the best kind of explanation of the kind of leaders I grew up with. I'm extremely lucky to have a lot of senior enlisted at my side throughout the time from start to finish. I mean, my first guy was Gunny Pascales, Echo Weapons, same kind of mindset. I remember getting to WTI. I walk in, he pulls me aside. He goes, sir, I can tell you're smart. I can tell you're in shape. I have a lot of experience. I just ask you that we talk before you speak. I said, I can do that, man. Right. And it takes a lot, because a lot of lieutenants will be like, well, damn you, man. Like, no, like, I ain't running shit past you. Just listen to him. That guy that means he cares. That means he cares.
That's huge. And not all platoon sergeants are awesome, but awesome ones are irreplaceable.
Absolutely. I mean, that I could go on and on. I had a list of gunnies at IULC, some of the best 0369s in the Marine Corps has ever had to offer. They're all now gunners, right? Gunner is the pinnacle of the Marine infantry. And, I got gunner shots, all these Blackwell, all these guys are just legends in the field, and they all kind of defined who I was. But, a lot of my other stories, I'd say, revolve around junior Marines who I just got to know, right? And there's a fine line between getting to know and having them trust you and kind of that fraternization. I never went over that line, but I always thought to myself, the Lance Corporal just needs to know, the PFC, the Corporal just needs to know you're a human being. They just need to know that you give a shit beyond the proverbial, oh, I'm doing this because I need you to think I give a shit, right? Sit down with them, have a meal, say, what's up, where you from, why'd you join, what the fuck do you want to do after this? Like, how can I help you, right? A lot of leadership comes into play of, what do you want to do next? How can I get you there? And that goes a long way with people. If you say, hey, man, like I will be here to make sure you get what you want in the future. I'm not just trying to take from you now, right? Because there's takers and givers in this world, and a lot of us are takers. I mean, it just is what it is. So how can I give back a little bit and make sure that you're successful? And that went a long way with some of the guys at 2-1 that I still keep in contact with, were some of the most phenomenal Marines I've ever had.
That's awesome. You said something a minute ago about servant leadership, and it's getting to be the point where nobody's ever heard of that before, and they don't understand what it means. How would you describe what servant leadership is?
Finding a way to make sure that the interest of the Marines you serve are put before yourselves, your own. If it comes down to it, you need to know what they want and how they want, like what they want and how you're going to get them there, before you start to address your own concerns about your future and your career. If you do that, your career will take care of itself. It is. I'm of the mindset now where after this, I mean, I want to go be an XO battalion where that servant leadership becomes about lieutenants and senior staff and COs. But after that, it's up to the Corps, whatever they want me to do. But you got to find a way to ask those hard questions the first time you interact, and realize that we are all in this together. We all have the end state of like mission accomplishment, but it takes people to do that damn thing. So, and I don't want to come off as like, hypocritical sitting up here saying I've done it amazing the entire time I've been in. But, I think also too, you have to have something to fall back on. For me, I got my wife and 2 kids, and that's all that matters to me realistically. I am in a good place mentally, physically, emotionally. So, I'm not coming up from a place of struggle right now. That means I can invest myself into people around me and making sure that they get what they need going forward, because that makes the best kind of Marine, right? They're more than willing then to trust you and to come together to accomplish whatever you throw in their way. So I know that's a lot of word jumbo at once, but kind of what it means to me.
No, you're spot on. For me, it's a little bit more simple maybe, and that's that, I'm in charge of making decisions, but I work for the guys that I'm in charge of. Like, it's not that they're working for me. We're all working to accomplish a mission that somebody above all of us kicked down, but I'm working for those guys, and I'm in charge of coming up with decisions. And if I'm going to make good decisions, I need good information. And the way to get good information is with experience. And I don't have as much of that as my NCOs do. So I'm going to go talk to them about it first. Like, it's not hard. It just takes it takes a lot of pain to get a 22-year-old college student who is kind of the cream of the crop for the country to figure out that that's the way that it works, and it's okay.
No, I will tell lieutenants when I get there, whenever I get a chance to be an XO, that at some point you have to say no, because if you don't say no, you're not in charge. Momentum is. All right, that's a weird thing to tell people, because we have a lot of our young leaders that will find a way to say yes every single time. So it's kind of taking servant leadership. Now let's go to the opposite way. How do you tell someone that that's not going to happen? That we're not doing that. Why? Because no, we're not. We have to stop this momentum that you have in place, because I'm making sure that we think through our actions before we accomplish what we need to do. And it's tough because a lot of our lieutenants, and I was probably guilty of it sometimes too, want to be liked, which is it's a dangerous thing. You don't need to be liked. All right. But that don't confuse being liked with being respected and being heard. Other thing I tell them too is, like, when you speak, it better be fucking important. You better be like, if you just go up there and just talk to talk, I'll be damned if they stop listening to you after the second time you do it. All right. When you walk around, when you show up, you need to provide value to them that they wouldn't get if you weren't there. Lieutenants have access to information. That's why lieutenants and captains and officers tend to have importance, because we have access to information and decisions being made. Not because we exist because we're fantastic at any such thing. It's because we can give information about why. The why is all that matters. Find the reason to explain it, and then execute. Just trust that they've been trained. You train them right, and they'll go do their thing. Which is all making me want to get back to the damn fleet a lot faster than time is ticking, man. It's tough being out here and knowing the world's still going on. But I'll be there soon enough.
Yeah, and what you're doing now is important. Is your family still in Ohio?
They are, yeah. We're in Cleveland still, so
okay.
Yeah, down there, and they're looking forward to whatever orders I get next, California or North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, you're the only reason that I don't talk shit about soccer a lot more often. I mean, I still do, obviously, but no, Major Hubert was a pretty badass soccer player. Went to the Ohio State University. We got to know each other like we've been talking about when we were back in Quantico, and have stayed in touch since. He's a Marine that I respect very much, and I'm super grateful that you were able to make the time to come on the show. And man, I'm looking forward to when our travels get us in the same place, and I can meet that beautiful family of yours.
100%, man. I think what we need to do is on my trip out west, because I think we'll be in San Diego, is we're going to take the northern route and come see you on the way.
I'd love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're doing great work, man. It's the thing I'll kind of leave you with from my perspective is that we tend to forget that everyone gets out of the Marine Corps. Everyone gets out, right? One way or the other. And returning quality citizens is tough to do. It's but we have to do it. And to watch what you're doing, to watch kind of the way you've done it, it gives me hope, because I'm scared shitless, man. In like 6 years, let's say 7 years, I decided to retire at 20. I don't know what I'm going to do. Work at the golf course, give lessons. I don't know. But, it's great to see you pursue your passion and help people and provide context for everyone. So big ups to you, man.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, brother. Well, we'll catch up again soon. And in the meantime, good luck hooking up those kids to the drug that is the Marine Corps. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
It's a cult, man. It's a great cult.
It is. It's my favorite.
See you, brother.
Yeah. I'm working on building a house this year, which is something that I know nothing about. And I love that. It's exciting. Everything is a new challenge, and there's lots of challenges that pop up. The other day, we were laying out rebar and getting ready to pour concrete for the foundation of the shop that's going to be next to the house. And one of the guys that was there that was helping, one of the construction crewmen, I looked over and he had a Stanley thermos sitting on the end of the trailer. I said, "How do you like that thing?" And he goes, "Oh, I love it. I've had it for a decade." It's like, if you find any environment where people are out there working hard with their hands outside, no matter the conditions, you're probably going to see a Stanley product there. It's something that just goes with that blue collar labor, because that's what this product is doing. It is out there working just as hard as you are. It's going to be there as long as you are. It's going to be there after you're done. It's something that I feel passionate about with every piece of gear that I take either into the woods or into the workplace. Like, it's got to be able to outwork me, and I work really hard myself. If you are also a hard worker, and I'm sure that you are, then you could probably appreciate the same type of gear. If you go to stanley1913.com and you use the discount code 6RANCH, that's the number 6 and the word ranch, you can get 25% off just about any of their products. And I encourage you to do that. They're a great supporter of this show and great supporter of this audience. Again, I love you guys, and I just want to pass this discount and the savings on to you. If you want something from Stanley, I encourage you to get it. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the show with a friend. You can also rate the podcast and leave a review. Your support allows me to keep doing what I love, which is meeting incredible folks and sharing their stories with you. For more content and photos, follow the show on Instagram at 6Ranch Podcast or me at 6Ranch Outfitters. This episode was produced by Emily Brannigan, with original music written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the 6Ranch Podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Christofferson. Tune in every Monday for a brand new episode of the 6Ranch Podcast. I'll catch you next week.